I'm telling you, we have to go to this party tonight. I had to bite my lip to stop from making an exasperated sound. Jessica had been on and on about parties for the last 3 weeks. It wasn't like she wanted to go to be seen there. We both knew why she wanted to be there, and it just wasn't my thing. Oh, and what makes you think this party's any different from the others you've tried to bring me to? She shook her head like I was some kind of idiot. It's Marcus's Halloween party. Everyone's going to be there. It's just one of those places that you have to be seen if you're anybody. Uh-huh. And it doesn't have anything to do with you wanting to get ghost-faced. Getting ghost-faced was a new trend that had been making the rounds on TikTok and YouTube lately. It was this party drug that had cropped up a few months ago, and it seemed like everyone was doing it. I didn't believe a word of it, but it was supposed to let you see ghosts and communicate with spirits. More than likely, you just got super messed up and you thought you were seeing things that weren't there. Whatever the case, it seemed like everyone and their brother was using it right now, and Jessica wanted to get in on the trend. She didn't want to go alone, though, so she kept trying to talk me into going with her, something I did not want to do. What? No! I just want to take my bestie to a cool party. Is that a crime or something? I ignored her as I kept working, not wanting to get dragged into this kind of thing again. Well, you'll have to go by yourself then. I'm not winding up on another compilation reel with a title like White Girl Getting Stoned and Throwing Up. She looked at me, looking like she was going to pout for a moment. But when she smiled mischievously, I knew she had another gamble in mind. Marcus's brother is going to be there, she said in a sing-song voice. That got my attention. She knew how I felt about Will. He had just gotten done with his first year of college, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of months. It was a puppy love kind of crush. I was way too young for him, but the idea that he might be there and notice me made me rethink my immediate refusal. I know you've had a crush on him since elementary school. If you come with me to this party, maybe he'll finally notice you, and then you can stop fawning like a kid over some hunky older guy like you've totally been doing lately. It would be nice to see Will again, I thought, and just because I was at the party didn't mean I had to do anything like that. I could just go and have a good time and not worry about any of the stupid stuff that might be going on. If Jessica wanted to get high on some weird drugs and then make a fool of herself, then that was no business of mine. I was her friend, but I wasn't her mother. Come on, she begged, please. You don't want me to go by myself and get taken home by some weirdo, do you? She was laying it on a little thick, but finally I rolled my eyes and turned to look at her. Okay, fine. If you're going to go to a thing like this, then I want you to be careful. You know, Mark's parties have been all about getting ghost-faced lately. I just don't want you to get hurt. Jessica waved me off. I promise I won't do anything that's going to get me put in jail or dead. I didn't believe that for a second, but it would have to do. We agreed to meet up on Friday and walk over. We'd tell our parents we were going to a regular Halloween party, the kind of Halloween party that wasn't full of boys and drugs, and we made plans to coordinate our costumes as well. She was going as a calico cat, and I had decided to go as a black cat. It would put both of us in a pair of bodysuits that would definitely get us noticed, and both of them were cute as hell, too. I'd make sure that she got home safe and sound and wouldn't get in any trouble from her parents. Hopefully, we'd have a great time without getting arrested. My dad took one look at my costume, and I didn't think he was going to let me out of the house for a moment. My parents aren't exactly old-fashioned, but They definitely have ideas about what you shouldn't leave the house wearing. I reminded him that it was Halloween, and this was what people wore, and he told me just to be careful. Then I headed out to Jessica's house. She opened the door, letting out a little squeal as she saw me in costume, and asked how her makeup had come out. She looked great. Her calico print was way better than mine, and the two of us headed off to the party. I had expected we were going to Marcus's house, but Jessica led us downtown towards a bunch of old warehouses instead. I asked her where we were going, and she said that Marcus's dad, the real estate agent, had managed to get him one of his sale properties to use for the party, so long as it didn't get too wild. It was in an old theater that was on the verge of being torn down, and I remembered seeing it a few times when we happened to be in the area. The ambience would be great for a Halloween party, and she even said that if we decided to get ghost-faced, there would probably be a lot of spirits around for us to commune with. Our parents would have probably flipped if they'd known where we were going, but as long as nobody squealed, we'd be fine. The place was packed. Most of our class had come, and there were people there that I'd never actually talked to. The inside of the building was just as spooky as the outside had been. There were some decorations put up, stuff you could find at a party store, but most of it was just old, rusty gutters and disused machinery and other things that added ambience to a place like that. If there was a place where there would be spirits, I could believe it would be here. There was the usual refreshment table full of any kind of alcohol you could want, at least any kind of alcohol you could hook from your parents' liquor cabinet. People hooking up on the couch and chairs they had brought in or waiting for the bathroom upstairs. Food that had probably already been picked over by people that had been there for hours, and a little group hovering around the door to the back room, which I assumed was where they were getting ghost-faced. Jessica waved at a group of girls who called us over, and we did a little sociable drinking before we were noticed by the host. Marcus called out to Jessica, and she looked up and smiled as she waved him over. I tried not to roll my eyes, but he was so obvious. Mark had had a crush on Jessica since they were in middle school, but he had probably felt that she was a little out of his league. Marcus was no dog, but Jessica was a cheerleader, and Mark was the student body president. Same level of popularity, but different spheres of influence. They just ran in different social circles, but lately, Mark had been hosting the coolest parties of the season. It had been a big boost to his popularity, and afterwards, Jessica might find herself not even in his league anymore. He came over, offering us drinks, and I was glad to see that he had Will in tow. I blushed a little, as I hadn't seen Will since he left for college, and here he was, looking just as cute as I remembered him. We had casually flirted a few times, but the idea that he could actually be into me was laughable. I was just one of his brother's acquaintances, and when he smiled at me, I thought maybe he actually felt something. He and Marcus squeezed in beside us, admiring our costumes and telling us we looked hot. We both blushed appreciatively, and when Marcus asked if we were going to get ghost-faced tonight, Jessica tried her best to stand in the way of my eye rolling. Everyone in that little room over there seems to be enjoying themselves. Why don't you ladies go join them and see what it's like? Sounds like, Jessica started to say, but I cut her off. Sounds like it's a great way to get whatever it is you guys have over there in my system, so people can do God knows what to me. This whole ghost-facing thing sounds like a great excuse for people to get handsy. Mark rolled his eyes. Jessica, why'd you bring a wet blanket like her to this party? If you knew she was going to ruin it, then I don't see what the point of bringing her was. Chill, little brother, Will said, winking at me. She's cool. That made me blush a little, but I pushed it down and turned back to Marcus. Jessica looked like she was going to make some excuse, but I stepped in close and got immediately defensive. I'm here to make sure that nothing bad happens to my friend, Marcus. Aren't you worried that something bad is going to happen to her if someone isn't there to keep an eye on her?" Marcus scoffed. "If you're too scared to try it, then just say so. But don't get in Jess's way if she wants to have some fun." People were starting to talk behind their hands now, and I'll be the first one to admit that I felt a little bit aware of the fact that a lot of them were looking at me. I may talk a big game, but I'm still susceptible to peer pressure like anyone else. I kind of wanted Mark to shut up, and I kind of wanted him to shut up bad enough to try to shut him up myself. The only thing I'm scared of is getting groped by you while I'm having some kind of fit. However, if Will agrees to look after me, then I guess I could try it. It was a dumb move, but I really didn't want to look like a baby in front of Will. Before you judge me too harshly, I was a teenager. Teenagers don't make the best decisions. "Of course," Will says, as he put an arm around me. "I'll be glad to keep an eye on you and make sure you don't get too out of your head." I felt my cheeks heat up as his hand went around my shoulder, and that seemed to be all the prompting that Mark needed. "All right then, let's do it." He led us into the little room, and when I saw what they were doing, I started having second thoughts. Whatever they were using to induce this state of mind was being pumped into what looked like a gas mask from World War II. The tubes going into it looked pretty bad, and the tank looked industrial rather than medical. Worst of all was the way the people using it looked behind the glass nodules. They all looked out at the world like they were seeing the most god-awful thing imaginable. Suddenly, I didn't want any part of this. I wished I had never agreed to this, and I wanted to try to find a way to get out of it that wouldn't make me look like a baby. "Having second thoughts?" Mark asked as a smile crept across his face. I shook my head, not trusting myself to talk. And as he went to speak with the two guys running the show, Will spoke up. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I don't really get the point of all this anyway." I started to tell him I hadn't wanted to do it anyway, but I realized I was going to have to unless I wanted the whole school to think I was a coward. By now, most of the people who had seen me talking to Marcus had come into the little room to see what I would do, and I'd be damned if I'd let them see me walk out of here with nothing to show for it but a bunch of rumors. Mark called me over, and I was introduced to Dwayne and Reggie. Dwayne looked like he might be some kind of surgical tech. The scrubs were certainly believable enough, but Daryl looked like he might be a different sort of pharmaceutical rep. Both of them looked like they might not be on the best terms with hygiene, and I didn't want to stand too close to Darren, as his dreads looked a little bit crawly. "Okay," Dwayne said as he led me over to the chair. "Listen closely, because it might save your life. When you put the mask on, hold your breath for a count of 5. Once you see the orange smoke, inhale one big lungful, then hold your breath for another 5 seconds. Once you see the green smoke, take another deep breath. Then it should start to work." "What, if I get the mixture wrong, will I see aliens instead of ghosts?" I asked snarkily, as they put me in the chair. That was when I realized the chair had straps on it, and they were securing my hands to the armrest before I was ready. "No, but if you get too much of the trilamine, then it could send you to the hospital." I wanted to ask him exactly what that was, but the mask was going over my face, and everyone outside was looking like people seen out of a fishbowl. The eyepieces of the mask were sweaty, unsurprisingly, after so many faces had been in it, and it felt like I sat there for hours as I tried to remember what color smoke I was going to get first. Suddenly, I saw a green smoke coming in through the tubes, and I remembered I was supposed to take a deep breath. I held it, waited for the orange smoke, and when it came, I took another deep breath. The effects were instantaneous, and I became very aware of why the people in the chair and on the TikTok videos looked so upset. They were right. The stuff they were pumping in would let you see ghosts. Not the translucent phantoms like at the Haunted Mansion ride at Disney either. Not the creepy apparitions you see in the movies like The Sixth Sense or The Shining either. It wasn't even like real people. Real people acknowledge you. They seem to know that you're there. What I saw was the ghosts of the building itself. And there was a lot of ghosts to be seen in this particular place. I saw how this place was abandoned in the 90s and how several homeless people had died here from drug overdose or simply because someone wanted something they had. I saw how it had been a steel mill in the 50s and how several men had been killed by a downpour of molten metal. I saw how it was a textile mill before that and watched as people had their arms pulled off or were drawn into the machinery they were using for manufacturing. I saw how people had once used this as a temporary court of law and how they hung some of the people right here on the floor where people were dancing and kissing. I saw the people who lived here when it was a tenement house. I saw the people who lived here when it was just farmhouses, and they all ran together like ants before my very eyes. They moved erratically, each of their lives happening on top of each other. But that wasn't the worst part. If they had continued to ignore me, I probably could have handled it somehow. Instead, I let out a high-pitched scream, and they all turned to look at me suddenly. The steel mill workers with their half-melted faces, the homeless people with puke drying on their shirts, the men hanging from the gallows, the women with dead babies, the children who had been mangled in the textile mill. They all turned and looked at me. I'd never felt more seen in my entire life. They started moving towards me, slowly, shuffling and moaning like zombies in a George Romero movie. I tried to run, but they'd strapped me in. I was stuck at the mercy of these spirits, and I screamed again as I closed my eyes and waited for them to fall on me like raindrops. When I opened my eyes again, the mask had been removed, and I was sitting with my head in Will's lap. He was yelling for somebody to get me some water, and he looked down at me as if to assure me that everything was okay, and I was going to be all right. You would have said that was the best possible outcome after that horrible thing, but all I could see were all those ghosts that were still somewhere around me. I could see the bloated faces and the toothless mouths and the stretched necks and the blood, and I couldn't stay there another minute. I got up and ran. I ran despite Will yelling for me, and despite Jessica asking what was wrong, and despite Marcus laughing that I was a big baby. I ran and ran and ran, and I didn't stop running until I was on my front porch and felt momentarily safe. Then I thought about it and realized there could be ghosts around me right now, and I'd never know. I'm sitting in a car park right now, writing this whole thing while I try to figure out what to do. The car park's brand new. They just built it a month ago, and I haven't heard anything worse than someone not paying for their parking stall so far here. I don't know how I can live with the knowledge that there are spirits existing all around me all the time. I don't know what I'm going to do. But before you jump to conclusions, I'm not going to hurt myself. Joining their ghostly choir is not something that I want to experience. I don't want to be the ghost looking back at the next person the next time they get ghost-faced. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button, maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.